guys, Mark here. I'm doing historical perspective today, but I'm doing it a little bit different because I've really struggled with this video. Usually I do a voiceover and I do the still images, but I want to do something just a touch different today. See, I've been wanting to do something on the Founding Fathers. George Washington's birthday's coming up. I thought it was really appropriate. So I've been really focusing on some things, but the more I focused, the harder this got. I had a hard time really narrowing down what I wanted to say, and there's two really important things I want to say. And so rather than try and labor over them and create some sort of script, and I'm going to go old school. I used to teach history, for those who know. In fact, I might be doing it again here shortly, which I'm really excited about. I love to teach history. And so here is Professor Mark just talking about the Founding Fathers and the two things that really burn this guy about the way they're treated. First and foremost is they're treated like one sort of mass. It said the Founding Fathers, like they're all one perfectly homogenous group, where they were really diverse and they really disagreed on things, and they came to their conclusions through hard debate. Independence was something that, of course, famously John Adams, he pounded away at. He really had to convince the other delegates. There was a lot, especially the Southern delegates, who were not excited about the prospect of breaking away from the British. And so that was a long debate and a painful one, and one that they finally had to sell the whole group on. And there were some mean things said back and forth, and these people did not get along. And like I said, they had some different beliefs in terms of religion. They had some different financial statuses, some different sort of thoughts on nobility and democracy and philosophy. Some of them were very much out of the John Locke strain, which I think is what we get a lot today, is those people who followed in John Locke, and then Jean-Jacques Rousseau from France, and Thomas Jefferson especially. Loved both those guys. And so that's, I think, what comes to us now. But there are people who definitely didn't agree with that. There's some people who even thought Thomas Hobbes was right about some things. And for those who know, Hobbes is the antithesis to Locke. So this was a diverse group, and then when they put together the Constitution, right, this is the second government of the United States. The first was the Articles of Confederation. Then we get the Constitution in 1788. They didn't agree at all on this thing, right? Like, this was a huge, hotly debated. It struggled to pass. And you have Patrick Henry famously saying, "I smell a rat." And Thomas Jefferson wouldn't agree to it, and his whole faction, until they added the 10 amendments. And that's actually the beautiful thing about the Constitution, right? They added a place amendments, so we can change it as necessary, because they realized it wasn't a perfect document. And so these Founding Fathers, they were individuals, and they debated, and they came to their conclusions through hard thought, and they knew they weren't perfect. And sometimes we treat them that way, like they're these one big glob, the Founding Fathers, and they were wise and sages, and every decision they made was perfect, the mythological characters. Now, okay, I have a ton of respect for these guys, right? I really think they were really smart men who put together a really revolutionary government at the time, and a really different sort of system. But they were just men. And that's actually great. That makes it better in my mind, because just men doing something like this is really impressive. But turning them into these mythological creatures is a bit disingenuous to them, right? It sort of elevates them to this height where they didn't have the heights. They were like you and me and all of us, right? And so these were guys, and they made this really bold decision, this really tough, hard decision, and they made it. And then they made another decision to use a kind of government that was not popular at the time, that was not something everybody was doing. People were talking about it, but nobody was using it. And so they said, you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to try it. And they forged ahead, and they formed the United States. And that is really impressive. So when we talk about the Founding Fathers, remember, this is a group that debated, hotly contested, and came to their conclusions through tough decision-making and compromise. And they were just men, but they were really good men, and they were smart men, and they were the leaders of their day. Yeah, Thomas Jefferson, was probably as exceptional as they come. He was extremely intelligent. I have my issues with Thomas Jefferson. That's another video for another day. Number two. Here we go, number two. Number two, the thing that bothers me most about the way we treat the Founding Fathers today, they wouldn't know. I've heard people say the Founding Fathers would take this position on this or this position on that on a modern issue, and it's ridiculous. Okay, it is utterly ridiculous. Okay, let's take the healthcare debate, right? The healthcare debate, which has been raging since the Affordable Health Care Act passed in 2009. Regardless of what you think of the Affordable Health Care Act, I'm not trying to necessarily take a side on one way or the other. But George Washington, right? It's almost his birthday. Let's pull him out. Boom. Put him in modern day. Put him here. And we will ask George Washington, what do you think of the Affordable Health Care Act? And he will give you a very blank stare. And you say, well, it's a social program meant to help people get insurance and health care. And he will continue to give you a blank look. And then you say something about, well, it insures people when they have to go to hospitals. And he will continue to give you a blank look because he still doesn't really know what the hell you're talking about. Because the nation's changed so much since 1700, the late 1700s, early 1800s. The men of that era wouldn't understand. So when I hear pundits and commentators and different people say, well, the founding fathers think this, or the founding fathers would have thought this about this modern issue, it's not really fair. It's not fair to them. It's a unprovable position because we don't know. You know, unless you could literally grab, Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Ben Franklin, all these guys, and then sit them down. First of all, explain the entirety of the last, 200 plus years of history, and then you could start to get maybe a position out of them. We've had the whole social contract has changed so much in the 19th century. There's John Stuart Mills. We have we have Marx and Engels for better or worse, and so and then we have John Maynard Keynes and all this stuff. Adam Smith was the only economist in their day, and he was still pretty new, and none of this stuff had come around yet. And so, man, it's hard to assume what position they would have taken. You can use anecdotal evidence, but it's grasping at straws. And so I'm asking those people out there to stop attributing things to the founding fathers they wouldn't know anything about. And they were smart guys, and man, if you brought them here, I'm sure they could figure it out, and they would take a very logical, well-worded position. But as it is, you're placing out of context things, and out of context is something that's always bothered me, so this one bothers me. So that's historical perspective. Like I said, it's a little bit different because I really wanted to put together my thoughts on this. So I'm just going with my teacher mode. And this is, usually I interact and talk with people while I teach, but I use my hands a lot. I point, you. But I can't do that because it's a video. Haha. So, alright, well, I hope you appreciated that, guys, and thanks for listening.